epic series. But making it wasn't so easy because the cast had quite a few rules and restrictions they had to follow at all times. Let's find out why the main cast couldn't improvise or come to the set with any facial hair. And we'll also tell you which rule Kaylee, Johnny, and Jim were happy to break. Ad-libbing was a no-go. Some shows and movies encourage actors to improvise their lines, but not Big Bang. Melissa Rauch once shared that they always had to stick to the written words exactly. Big Bang is very tightly scripted. Because we shoot in front of a live audience, it's basically like doing a filmed piece of theater, she said. Well, it's hard to argue with that. The main cast followed this rule for the entire show, but some of the recurring actors turned out to be much more rebellious. Remember when Will Wheaton came to the new Star Wars movie premiere dressed like Spock and everyone in the cinema booed him? He completely improvised that. Plus the line that he said next.
Yeah, live long and suck it!
Genius, isn't it? Here's what Wheaton said about it. When you can make the crew laugh, when you can kill the crew on a sitcom, it feels really, really, really good. It's like hitting a home run. Yeah, that must have been awesome. Another rebel who managed to improvise was Kevin Sussman. Early in the show, Stewart went on a date with Penny and then ad-libbed a line.
I love you.
Thanks to that, his character development changed completely. It was the first time, really, that Stewart went from just being a normal guy to being desperate, Sussman said. I wonder what they originally had in mind for Stewart, but they're probably not allowed to discuss that, just like something else. The original pilot was off topic. The initial script of The Big Bang Theory had Sheldon and Leonard, but it didn't have Raj, Howard, or even Penny. Instead, it introduced Katie, who was tough and a bit nasty. At the test screenings, the audience didn't like her because she was too intimidating. So the show creators ended up replacing the character and recasting the actress behind Katie. And that's how we got Penny. Sheldon and Leonard also had completely different personalities. And I'm pretty sure that we wouldn't have liked them as much. For example, Sheldon loved big butts and had adult magazines. Gee, no wonder the series creators don't even want to hear about the original pilot. After all, it shows their original failure. Well, if no one wants to talk about it, let's leave the past in the past and be happy with the Big Bang Theory we know and love. After all, this show gave us a lot of happy moments, such as a special treat for the live audience. I'm not talking about sharing the Chinese takeout or pizza, although we will get back to the food question later. The cast did something different and much more memorable. In the middle of filming a random episode, the cast would just burst out into an elaborate dance number, and everyone had to participate. Cast, crew, everyone. And nobody seemed to mind because they all loved dancing so much. In fact, the show itself actually had a few flash mobs, the most memorable of which was Raj and Bernadette's Bollywood dance. It was awesome. But the question remains, how on earth did they all find the time to rehearse those dances? Especially the actress who had more than one job on the set. Mayim Bialik, actress and consultant. Being the only scientist working on a show about scientists is no easy task. Mayim had to make sure that whatever was happening on the screen and whatever the characters talked about was legit, and not just some science-y sounding nonsense. It was her job, along with a few other advisors, to check everything, down to the equations written on the whiteboards. So she definitely deserved double profit for all her work, and Mayim got it because she became the only cast member, apart from Jim and Johnny, to receive an Emmy Primetime nomination. But things were a bit different when it came to the actual profit, meaning the money she got for the show, but we'll get back to that later. Right now, let's answer one obvious question that might have slipped your mind while watching the show. Were there no MCU-based outfits? Whenever the gang had to dress up as superheroes, they'd always choose the DC ones, and never Marvel. Eagle-eyed fans might recall now that Raj once dressed up as Thor. Yes, he did, but it was the Norse god Thor, not the Marvel version of him. Other than that, we only saw Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman.
Aquaman sucks.
And that was on purpose. The thing is, they couldn't dress up as MCU characters. The show ran on CBS, which is part of Warner Brothers, same as the DC Cinematic Universe. So they could only dress up as DC heroes.
Oh, hi, I'm Steve Bloom, and I've voiced thousands of characters, including Wolverine, Starscream, Zabrelios from Star Wars, Tank Dempsey from Call of Duty, Spike from Cowboy Bebop, and so many more.
heroes because the studio had rights to them, and getting licensing from Marvel for the characters to show up as MCU heroes was quite problematic. But of course, they could at least mention Marvel once in a while, and they even had a cameo from Stan Lee himself. Now let's take a look at the outfits we saw the cast wearing in every episode. Always the same style. Most of the actors dressed pretty much the same throughout the show. Sheldon's two-shirt style, Raj's vests, Leonard's hoodies, and of course Howard's turtlenecks, big belt buckles, and tight pants. In fact, Penny was pretty much the only character who showed any diversity in her clothing style. Was this another way to demonstrate that she wasn't an orderly scientist like her friends? Maybe, but we do know that dressing in a certain style was a rule for everyone else. And it was totally worth it. After all, just like superhero costumes, their outfits became iconic. And if we saw any one of them look different, we'd probably freak out. Just like Sheldon did after Amy's makeover in the final season.
I like the way I look.
Well, I don't.
And there was another rule about the actors' looks, but this one was only for the guys. No facial hair. Except for the episode where they came back from the North Pole, all the guys had to have faces as smooth as a baby's belly. While in real life, most of them liked to let their beards grow. And in between filming the seasons, they would actually do it. But as soon as they had to come back to their characters, they'd have to shave. The reason why is quite simple. You can't just have Raj, who's supposed to be a shy guy, walking around with a full-grown beard looking like a manly man. The same goes for everyone else. After all, none of the guys could be described as manly men. They were all nerdy scientists. And apparently nerdy scientists can't have facial hair. Share in the comments below what you think about that. And we're moving on to the next rule. No food while you work. In pretty much every episode, we saw the gang eating something. All the food was real, and it was actually delicious.
It's okay, this tastes so good.
But most of the time, the actors couldn't enjoy it. After all, they were there to act, not to eat, right? And if they tried to do both at the same time, it would create situations like these.
Let this kid get to you. About a mouthful of rice. I think we make...
Kunal Nayyar once shared that they always had to ensure they weren't chewing anything when they had to say a line. And yet it looks like they didn't always succeed in doing that.
Mouthful of food. Let me I'm sorry. They don't feed us here.
But for Kaylee Cuoco, it was too hard to abstain from eating, and she'd often break the rule. I must be the only one who really eats the food. I save my appetite until we do those scenes, the actress said. Well, I would do the same. The next rule applies not only to the Big Bang Theory cast, but also to most actors in shows and franchises. Constantly promote the series. Ever wondered why a cast all goes to Ellen's, Tonight Shows, and so on together? It's not necessarily because they like to do it, although some certainly do, but the actors have to attend these shows to promote their series. So as a rule, they don't only discuss their personal lives. They also have to say at least a few kind words about the show that put them on the map. And what's more, those actors on social media also have to use it to promote their series. Even now, when the show is over, many of the Big Bang stars still post behind-the-scenes photos and share memories about the good old days. But you know what? If you're paid hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode, it's not a big deal to promote the hands that feed you. And speaking of the pay, the salaries were fixed. Or not. Did you know that Kaylee, Jim, and Johnny got more money per episode than everyone else for a large part of the show's run? They were always considered the lead trio, although other actors were also part of the main cast. Fans loved the cast all the same, and they all appeared pretty much as often. So it doesn't seem fair that some cast members didn't get as big a paycheck. At some point, Kaylee, Jim, and Johnny realized that and started negotiations along with the others. And eventually, the top actors agreed to take a pay cut so that their colleagues could get more. So for example, instead of $1 million per episode, they got $900,000. And the others finally received a pay raise. This is a great example of how breaking the rules increases team spirit. If you want to know more about the Big Bang Theory cast, watch the video we made about the most recent updates in their personal and professional lives. And stay awesome.